going to as well. But of course, all the tourist traps to avoid, certainly not on free tours, of course. Now, we've been around for 15 years as a way of giving travellers of all budgets an opportunity to see the best city in the world. So the way our model works is that rather than getting people to pay up front for these sorts of tours where you don't know what the quality is going to be like, if you do enjoy the tour, you are more than welcome to leave what it was worth to you. At the end, I've got a card reader, cash facilities, etc. But more important than any of that is that you have lots and lots of fun. That is my main goal today, is you guys have lots and lots of fun. You leave it saying, well, I know all about Sydney, I had a great time, and yeah, you know, that's a fantastic thing. So yeah, a bit of housekeeping as we're moving through the city today as well. We've got a slightly larger group today, but I've got a nice loud voice, that's okay. But as we are moving through the city, please just make sure that we're sort of vaguely staying within contact of the group. If you do feel like you need to catch up and cross a red light, don't worry, I'll always be waiting to make sure the back of the group is caught up. Please don't try and run across the road and get run over by a car, because it looks really bad on the Google reviews if someone dies on the tour. So we'll try and avoid that. If you don't die on the tour, then you can leave me a 5-star review at the end, but we'll see how you go. Now, if you do need the toilet, again, we do have a break halfway through the tour, but if you need to go before or after that, please let me know, and I can try and find a couple of public toilets along the way that are slightly better than a tree, maybe. We'll see how we go. And if you need to leave the tour early today, I will be deeply offended. It's okay. If you need to leave, just let me know and I can update the head count. I'm just, as I said, vaguely responsible for your safety as we do move through the city today. So just let me know if you are heading off to another booking. That's perfectly fine. I'm just trying to keep an eye on everyone who's here today as well. Now, I'd also like to make a quick acknowledgement of country. So I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land here in Sydney. So these are the local Aboriginal people, the Gadigal people. I'd like to pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. Now, our tour today is focusing really more on modern Sydney, so the buildings and monuments we've seen around us for the last 250 years. There's over 65,000 years of Aboriginal history on this continent. So the First Nations cultural tour. We'll talk about a couple of while you're here in Sydney, but there's so many around the country. They're really, really fantastic and learning firsthand from the world's oldest continuously surviving culture. But anyway, we're meeting here today in Town Hall Square, which would have been a terrible place to start the tour 200 years ago, because this is the location of the first cemetery in the colony of New South Wales. So basically, back in the day, this is the big body dumping ground. And the important thing to note about us Australians is we're particularly lazy. We're quite famous for being lazy. So this wasn't a fancy cemetery. Basically, when you died, your body was just left here. If you're lucky, they might have covered up with some soil or maybe given you a headstone. But usually they would just dump your body there. So that was okay back in the day because the city was down by the harbour's water. Eventually, however, the city did begin to expand, and then this became the dead centre of town. You don't really want this very particularly nasty graveyard in the centre of your town here, so we decided to exhume or clear the bodies from the graveyard out of the way here, and instead make a very classy centre of town, our Town Hall Square. I think probably a little bit nicer these days. Now we have the eponymous Town Hall behind us over here. Now, construction on this one started in the 1860s, 1868, took 20 years to build, and it was opened up to the public in 1890s. So in the 1890s, when it was opened up, it was seen as the height of class here in the city. Now this, amongst a lot of our older buildings here in Sydney, is made out of the yellow Sydney sandstone. You see a lot of this beautiful big blocks of sandstone and a lot of the older buildings here. The architecture, however, amongst these older buildings varies a lot. And this one was actually inspired by the French, because at the time, sort of that French culture was seen as the height of culture, of course still is. So that was very, very inspired by that. We call this the French Second Empire style building here. They were trying to attract all the VIPs, international ambassadors, here to Sydney and say, yes, we're a world-class city here, because we weren't particularly very big in the 1800s. Now these days, of course, all the VIPs and ambassadors go to the Opera House, and this is seen as more of a cultural centre of the city. So there's one of the world's largest pipe organs in here, so they have some fantastic musical performances and concerts and candlelit orchestras here inside the Town Hall. There's also meetings of councils and sort of city events here, and also little pop-up museums that happen in the building too. Like for instance, at the start of this year, we did have a Banksy pop-up here in Town Hall. So yeah, kind of like a cultural centre of the city for us these days. Now on the other side of the square, we also have another very significant building, once again made of that yellow city sandstone. This is a neo-Gothic cathedral, and this is actually an Anglican or a church of England cathedral. Significantly, this is the oldest cathedral in the entire continent. It's from, once again, 1868. Now, if you're from anywhere else in the world, your pharmacies are probably older than that, but for us, real ancient architecture. But yes, it's a neo-Gothic cathedral here, inspired by a lot of the European but especially English cathedrals at the time. And that's because a lot of the people living here in the 1800s had moved over from England. So this means that, yes, I think we have that English identity. That unique Australian identity didn't really begin to emerge until a few generations later, really after World War I. And now these days, everyone in England wants to live here in Australia rather than the other way around. I usually say something to do with the weather, but it's a bit